Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for for a virtual armchair travel to the north of Ireland. We're going to visit Belfast, the Giant's Causeway, scenic glens and coasts of the Great Atlantic Way in this virtual armchair travel presentation from Jack Holmes, a travel photographer and owner of Images from Near and Far at Western Avenue Studios in Lowell. A retired high school teacher, Jack previously served as president of the Greater Lynn Photographic Association and as gallery manager of the Loading Dock Gallery in Lowell. And he regularly gives armchair travel presentations to senior centers and libraries in the area. And I believe this is the first time Jack has presented to our group here in Tewksbury. So let's give, I say in Tewksbury, I know most of you aren't even in Tewksbury, but let's give Jack a big virtual round of applause for being with us today. And Jack, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate that. And thank you all for tuning in. As Robert says, my name is Jack Holmes, and I've been a traveling photographer for some 6 decades. Thanks for traveling with me to the north of Ireland. My wife and I traveled in north for 2 weeks prior to Brexit and the COVID years.
Jack, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
And I don't want you to do anything significant here, but could you go down to live transcript? It should be a CC icon. And can you shut your live transcript off? Do you see on the bottom of your Zoom, there should be something that says CC live transcript? Do you see anything at the bottom? My screen's slightly different than your screen.
TCI live transcript.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it wouldn't be as part of your PowerPoint there. You know what I'm going to do? Let me just shut off the transcript on my end. I want one of those gray bars to disappear. So yeah. Why don't you move to your next slide, Jack?
Okay.
Let's see if the gray bars disappear. They're still there. So Jack, do you have anything at the top of your screen?
Yeah, live.
Okay, can you get rid of that box? Can you? Okay, all right. So one box down. Now at the very top of your screen, I think is sort of the Zoom settings or something. I'm not quite sure what's there. Is that box movable? Can you move that at all?
Yeah,
don't accidentally flick out of the meeting, but is there any way you can move that box, or is that there to stay?
It seems to be here.
I'm fairly certain that box is movable, and if there's a way to move that off the screen, that would be great. But if not, we'll deal.
Oh, there it goes. I moved it.
Hey, Jack! Hey, all right, it's a Zoom miracle. All right, Jack, we can fully see 100% of your screen, and I'll edit this part out. All right, so you can take it away. Back to you, Jack.
Thank you very much. Sorry about my moving things around here. Anyways, as I was saying, my wife and I traveled 2 weeks prior to Brexit and the COVID years. Norwegian Air is a low-cost carrier that was inaugurating a new route from Providence, Rhode Island to Belfast. And for about $100 round trip, we decided we had to go. We traveled clockwise from Belfast, across to Northern Ireland, and then into the Republic of Ireland along the what's called the Wild Atlantic Way. In 2014, we had traveled to the west and the south on this route. So this one is just on the north. Ireland is a beautiful place with a lot of friendly people everywhere, but there are some deep historic divisions there. The divisions are both religious and political and date back at least 4 centuries. It's good to know a little something about these histories before you go. If I can get this, move my pointer doesn't like to move here. Let's try that. No. Having trouble moving my pointer, Robert. There we go.
Yep.
The slideshow is advancing, but I'm not.
So Jack, we see a beautiful photo right now of people on the sidewalk. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
So I see you have a red pointer. Oh, okay, it's moving. That's interesting. So I can see your cursor and I can see a red dot. So I'm not sure why I see both, but anyway.
Yeah, I can't get it to change, to move things around. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go back just a tiny bit here, and I'm not going to use the pointer because it messes things up, apparently.
However you want to do it is fine. When Jack
Yeah, I
taught high school
apologize.
folks, Zoom wasn't a thing. So when
Yep,
Jack
here
taught
we
high
go.
school, Zoom wasn't invented yet. Okay, here we go.
So this is a view of the north of High Street. There are Albert Memorial clocks in the background on this old and new view. Modern Belfast is a city with a lot of colorful and thought-provoking murals. After a jet-lag nap, when we got there, we began our walking tour with local guide Marty Malloy here with my wife. The arranged 2-hour trip became 5 hours for 30 pounds and a pint. Entries are narrow passageways through buildings and housing blocks, and they connect parallel streets. This one is Joy's entry. Here, leading to a nearby street where the oldest building in Belfast stands. It began in the 1680 as a warehouse for fish and then for all kinds of traded commodities. The present use business is the Dirty Onion Bar and Yard House Restaurant, and this was born in 2013. There are over 2,000 murals in Northern Ireland, and they are frequently political propaganda, and some date back to the early 1900s. Many of the modern ones are of popular people, and these are quite something like these. Others are political and intended to bring opposing political factions together. Glenn Malloy is a street artist who is painting a less political art. At first, he was a clandestine muralist where he painted in the alleys after the pubs closed at night to avoid attracting attention. Now he's in demand and he paints in the daytime by commission from the city. Here my wife is talking to Glenn Malloy as he's visiting one of his artist workers. This area is a lot of murals. It's quiet in the morning. Tourists come later in the day. This is still in the morning, but in the evening, this is very, very busy. These are the walls of the wine cellar entry. Political and cultural figures are recognizable to locals. And behind me is a courtyard. And this courtyard is the City Life mural. It's also the backyard for a pub. So during the evening, this place is very, very crowded and probably quite noisy. On the extreme right side of the photo here, you can see with the entrance to the bar. There are a lot of British statues and monuments in Northern Ireland. Victoria Square area is a popular shopping place. Biddle's Bar is a Flatiron building like the one in New York City and is a very popular pub. You notice in front the stack of empty kegs. Oh, time for us to have a pint. Okay, we're inside of Biddle's Bar. Looks like an old Irish bar. And they have a mural of troubles and Friday peace inside there. In the lower left-hand corner of the photo is the two women who were involved in crafting the Good Friday piece. More murals. You can see my barber across from our hotel. And on the right is a local chef of renown, which reminds me it must be lunchtime. No photographs inside that restaurant, though. Across from the Tourist Information Center is the Cathedral Church of St. Anne. This landmark mural is also near this tourist office, where we signed up for a black cab tour of the Shankill Road and the Falls Road neighborhoods. Pat's tour cost £35. Let me give you a little history here about Northern Ireland. Tensions between the British and Irish go way back to the early 1600s, when the Ulster plantations were established by the English. The goal was to colonize the land and to civilize the native Gaelic population. Scots and English were recruited to establish and to staff the plantations. Settlers were required to be English-speaking, Protestant, and loyal to King James I. The potato famine, which began in 1847, was another major dividing time between the British tenant farmers and the Irish tenant farmers and the British plantations. The Ulster Crisis and Home Rule is relatively modern, dating back to World War I, before World War I into the 1880s. East Uprising of 1916 began the violent separation, partition into the Irish Free State, and the Northern Ireland took place in 1921, and full British independence was finally achieved in 1948. Here's some recent history. Unionist and loyalist means pro-British, it means Protestant, and their color is orange. Nationalist means Irish, it means Catholic, and their color is green. Note the dates here. October 1968 was when the Troubles began in Londonderry, and that was a time of the American Civil Rights Movement. Martin Luther King is often seen as a hero figure in many of the nationalist murals, and the song "We Shall Overcome" is considered to be a partisan song here. 1998 Good Friday piece was hammered out by two women from opposing factions. Generally, a peace ensued after that, kind of a peace. But Brexit has kind of re-energized the tensions between the Irish and the English. It's raining off and on during our black cab tour. Orange is a symbol for the Protestants and the British loyalists. This one mural commemorates Protestant King William III of Orange's defeat of the Irish at the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. Here are some contradictory decorations on buildings. And some conflicting murals side by side. Meg's photographing a woman's healing quilt. And then we came across Crumlin Gowl, which is used extensively during the Troubles. It was decommissioned in 1996 and later rehabbed in 1992, where you can hold conferences there and weddings too, if you like. Stop on the Bombay Road in Catholic neighborhood at the Clonard Martyrs Memorial Garden. Pat, our guide, gave both sides views of this region in his nonpartisan tour, but there is no question that he is Catholic. He spoke of his experiences being racially profiled by British soldier, harassed and then beaten while walking home from school. His father had told him not to fight or to retaliate, or he would wind up in prison or dead on the sidewalk. It sounds quite a bit familiar when you think about what young black men endure here. It's heavy and sad place. On the other side of the Clannad Garden is the Peace Wall in the Protestant neighborhood. Notice the high fence to protect against projectiles thrown over the top. Pat had a black marker, and he encouraged people to write on the Peace Wall in the Protestant neighborhood. The yellow security gates here separate the neighborhoods. They used to be closed during night curfew. Presently, neither the factions nor the city want them removed. In fact, when Brexit happened, they were temporarily closed at night at the start because there was some minor troubles. Botanical garden at the Ulster Museum provided a welcome break from the heavy tensions in neighborhoods. And just down the street from the museum is the Crown Saloon, one of the more famous Belfast pubs, built in 1885 across the railroad station. It has some great stained glass features and also some private booths. Here's a view from one of those booths. Windows and carvings. An evening walk and time to pack for leaving. We never got to the Titanic Museum across the bridge here. Northern Ireland, County Antrim. Expansive and calming views are a nice change from the actually soft tension of Belfast. Carrickfergus has a harbour entrance. And this harbour entrance is a scene site from HBO's series Game of Thrones. There are several sites in Northern Ireland for sale. A wee tapestry here, brought to you by Irish Linen. Never lose a selling opportunity. The Glens of Antrim are some scene sites there as well. This one, Glenarife, is known for its waterfalls along a hard-packed walking trail. Here's Mayor's Tail Falls. And I snuck in with a time release on my tripod. Further down the stream, another lovely little waterfall. This is a half-second exposure to make the water all silky. The trails were well graded here, and in some places there are stairs, so it's some folks who have trouble walking might have difficulty there. A lot of lovely flowers. We stayed in the bed and breakfast outside of the village of Bushmills on the north coast of the County Antrim. Touristy Port Rush is in the 30-minute drive from there. As a photographer, it's important for me to be on site early and late when crowds are not there. Note Finn McCool, he's a legendary Scottish giant who built the Giant's Causeway. Bushmills is definitely a British-Irish village. The village of Ballycastle could have been anywhere in England. When Ireland was petitioned in 1921, 6 northern counties became Northern Ireland. They were retained because of the flax textile industry in the countryside and the shipbuilding in Belfast. Titanic and its sister ship were built in Belfast shipyard. Bushmills Village is the home of the ancient Bushmills Distillery, lovely Irish whiskey. Been operating since the plantations of 1608. After the distillery tour and some tasting, It was time to move on. Heading for the coast. Giant's Causeway marker at the visitor center. A parking fee is collected during the center's operating hours, and a free minibuses are available. Before and after hours, parking is free, but you have to walk a kilometer from the parking lot to the causeway. Notice that the distances to Iceland and Scotland in the upper corner of that sign. I wanted sunset light and fewer visitors for photography. Giant's Causeway is made of hexagonal basalt needles with their tops exposed. Similar kinds of rock formations are found in Iceland, where you see the needles, but you don't really see the tops. Giant Finn McCall built this step, walked back to Scotland to see his lover. You see the footprints here? And Scotland is on the horizon in the far distance. It's a 30-second exposure on a tripod. It smooths out the clouds and the sea. Near Giant's Causeway is Carrick Reed. It's an island where salmon fishing was the focus. The first bridge could be raised and lowered. It was made of roped planks. You note the picture here in the upper top right. Today, there is a real bridge there, and it makes sense to get there real early in the day to buy tickets before the lines are created along the walkway. It's a scenic 1 kilometer walk to the bridge. Notice the walkers along the edge. There's no shuttle here. You have to walk the whole way. The islands are volcanic plugs exposed by erosion, same kind of stuff that the causeway is. Modern bridge, original location over the gorge. It's 66 feet long, suspended 90 feet above the rocks and the sea, and no more than 5 people are allowed on the bridge at any one time. Seabirds nest on the island, and no salmon fishing is done there any longer. This is the line to leave the island. With a load limit of 5 people, traffic has to be controlled, so there is sometimes a wait. A local painter's pop-up gallery, both selling and working. Dark Hedges. Dark Hedges is a tree tunnel built in 1770s during the plantation time. It was the grand entrance drive for the owner's new English bride and then later subsequent visitors. Like Giant's Causeway, it was a location I wanted to photograph. In Belfast, we found out that it was used in Game of Thrones as the King's Road, and it was also used in a Transformer movie. Bus tours from Belfast stop here late in the afternoon. Some 90 of the 150 trees, original beech trees, currently line the lane known as Braga Road. And this road is very narrow, but very busy during tourist hours. So we returned the next evening in the rain for a more atmospheric view. Rathlin Island. Across the strait from Carrick-a-Reed is Rathlin Island. It's the largest and only inhabited island in Northern Ireland. Church Bay is the only village on the island of 100 people. It was offering housing and monetary awards for people who guaranteed that they would live there for at least a year. Small shuttle bus drives periodically between Church Bay and the Western Lighthouse. The lighthouse is on the top, and the lightkeeper's house is on the top, and the light is on the bottom so that it doesn't go too far out to sea. Sea cliffs are high here, and they attract seabirds and therefore birders and many photographers. And strong Atlantic winds here can almost blow you over. We're walking back to Church Bay. through the heather, past a local herd, small part of it. Abandoned properties are quite abundant in the north. This small house, I don't know when it was abandoned, but this is the kitchen through the window. They've gone Church Bay ahead. Walking in. These are modern housing, and I think there's a hotel in this section. Senior moments. We're heading to the ferry that's going to go back to Valley Castle on the mainland. Our weather was a remnant of a North American hurricane, so it was both rainy and very windy. Like a roller coaster on the inside of that ferry. We made a second visit to Giant's Causeway on our last night because there was going to be a good sunset. Sunsets need subjects in the foreground and the midground. I used a tripod with some long exposures. This is a normal length shot. Same location with a 30-second exposure. I like the black and white version. Another 30-second exposure. It's time to leave Bushmills and head west. Dunluce Castle, ruins with Port Rush way in the background. I didn't know it at the time we were there, but I have ancestral clan MacDonald relations to this castle. 1588, a Spanish Armada ship, the Girona, sank near here. Northern Ireland, divided city. Landmark Guildhall, quite famous. Famous for its stained glass windows. There were 22 original ones. They were recreated, and then a new Bloody Sunday window was also installed in 1989. The bombing had taken them out. Posing in the mayor's chair. I wonder if he's a sergeant at arms. Wooden sculpture facing a cannon in the city wall. The Guildhall's over to the right here. We booked a free walking tour. This unapologetic partisan guide gives a nationalist tour of the Bogside, which is a Catholic neighborhood made famous during the January 1972 Bloody Sunday. The ancient city walls in the hill in the background. Bloody Sunday monument below the city walls. Our guide's father was killed here along with 11 others on Bloody Sunday. Two views of the city from the top of the city walls. Loyalist West Bank Londonderry on one side, and nationalist Bogside Derry on the other side. Here, the troubles are not very far below the surface. There is fear that Brexit will reignite it. No trouble here, though. Be sure you don't wear partisan colors or sing partisan songs. We just went in for a flight of brews and some dinner after that heavy tour. This sign was near the current soft border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Troubles are still below the surface. This is in County Tyrone. And across that is the Donegal. We're going to head north in the Republic, County of Donegal, underpopulated and underdeveloped. It's a beautiful place with beautiful scenery, though. expansive, and quiet. Couple bike, 2 people on the tour. Welcome change from the divisions of the tensions back in Northern Ireland. Granite Head, far north of County Donegal. Malin Head is the most northerly point on the island, and it's in the top left background. As a result of the potato famine, the land emptied out due to starvation and emigration to North America and Australia. Narrow roads. You can see why farming here was basically subsistence. A lot of beautiful scenery. Bunbeg Harbor. This was our home for a couple days. Here's a local spot for community. A lot of these places exist in the north and in the whole of Ireland, actually. An evening of music in the pub. Some 12 to 18 musicians. Most of them were high school kids. Some patrons near our table. Whoops, she caught me filming her yawn so quick I switched and panned over to the musicians. We wanted to climb Mount Errigal between Bunbeg and Glenveigh National Park. It would have been a 6-hour hike, but the rain forecast for the afternoon, we decided to go to Glenveigh. In the Republic, signs are in both Gaelic and English, and the money is in euros. In Northern Ireland, the signs are just in English, and the money is pounds. County Donegal was not included in Northern Ireland at the petition, probably because the farming was basically subsistence levels and there were not many people there as a result of the potato famine. At Glenveigh National Park, the rain started a little earlier than predicted and continued off and on and off and on and off and on. Loch Bay invited us for a walk. So we went walking. And I think I found a leprechaun hole. But rain started coming again, so we put on our rain gear and photographed close-ups, small scenes. First a drop, then a cold torrent of rain, and we were drenched. Another lovely day, and note the heather and the peat bog near Bunbeg. These trench cuts to remove peat. Peat was hand dug at one point. Now it's mostly done by a machine. A few people still heat and cook with peat, but most of it is for garden usages. Here are some peat bricks drying. Then they could put into broken up and or put into bags as they are. This trench was a relatively recent machine cut. A sheep gang is guarding entrance to this town. Sheep are everywhere. The paint on the rump identifies the owner, and ruins are also quite common as well. This village was abandoned during the potato famine. On the horizon, modern holiday homes and a few modern farms. This one's for sale. It's a bigger, one that we saw on Rathlin Island. This is 2 stories. Here's a well-to-do modern farmhouse. Sheep in the front yard. And a well-to-do plantation era house with sheep in its front yard. And their view out across the Republic's Conor Donegal. On the way to Donegal town, we found a road stop for tea and popcorn. Tea and popcorn. And a nice view down the valley. We're entering Donegal town. They had an interesting little museum inside this church here. Irish Coast Guard? I don't think he's Coast Guard. Definitely it's raining again though. As he steps out. Kind of begin to stop. And further down the river, there's a ruined church. And the cemetery is still in use. Slieve League. It's the highest sea cliff in Ireland, not as pretty as the more famous and picturesque cliffs of Moher in the west. Here a German motorcycle group and a guy with a family, large format camera. They're photographing the cliffs. This said to be some of the largest in Europe, actually. And the heather, more sea cliffs in the background. Thistle is everywhere. Sheep and cattle will not eat it. Some people, people don't pick it either. County Sligo was home of the poet William Butler Yeats. Here, murals refer to him and his work. There are actually few murals outside of Northern Ireland, as far as I can see. The only poem I can recite is one of his, The Song of the Wandering Angus. Yeats' grave is frequently visited, very well cared for, and guarded, fiercely guarded. Back in Sligo town, Foley's is calling. Some Bushmills on top and some tea as well. Well, it's last call. Last call for dinner and a pint. I finished my dessert. Time to head home. The north of Ireland can be a heavy historically, and it is a beautiful place to visit. I definitely need to return to it. Thanks for traveling to the north of Ireland with me. If you have any questions or inquiries, I can be reached at jackholmes@yahoo.com or in my studio at Western Avenue Studios.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jack. Let me come back on the screen here. Great. So I do think we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes worth of time here for questions. So if anyone has it, if anyone has any comments or questions for Jack, please type them into the chat or into the Q&A. Pat says, I've been to Giants Causeway and your pictures are great. Barbara says, wonderful, and she wish you had more. She wish you had more. I believe.
Well, I do, but I'd be here for 3 or 4 hours.
I believe Jack actually showed us 200 photos, by the way. So I know it flew by, but he had quite a bit there. Pat says, I've been to Ireland over 20 times and your pictures are some of the best I've seen. Jan says, a beautiful program, Jack. I was unaware of the amazing murals and artwork. Stunning views. Thank you. Judy says, beautiful photos. Karen says, thank you. Beautiful photos. Mary says, photos were breathtaking. Now Francis is talking my language here. Francis wants to know, Jack, how was the food there?
It can be variable. It's not as simple as it used to be 2 decades ago. In Belfast, there is actually a Michelin star. No, there are 2 Michelin star restaurants when we were there. We did go to a place called Echo. It was a lovely, lovely place. The food was absolutely wonderful. My photographs were terrible, which is why I did not include them in the show. I apologize. But I would definitely go back to Echo again. That was excellent food.
Marion and Diane have similar questions. Marion wants to know, what month were you there? And Diane wants to know, what time of the year did you go?
We were there in the summer. I'm going to say it was June-ish. Yeah.
Teresa says, really enjoyed this virtual tour and your beautiful photographs. Thank you. Todd says, thank you. Your photos were amazing. We are headed over to Northern Ireland next month. This was a great presentation. Carol says, thank you for sharing your beautiful photos. Myra says, wonderful presentation. Makes me want to be there now. Could this be accomplished on a bike? And she also wants to know if this was expensive.
On a bike. Let me talk about transportation very briefly. We saw one bike group, and I believe along the Great Atlantic Way in the Republic, a lot of bikers use that. In the north of Ireland, when we were along the coast, I did not see many people bike trekking. Roads are kind of narrow, so you do need to be an excellent bicyclist. And speaking about transportation as well, I did notice that a couple of places now have requirements about the maximum age of drivers. So before you go and plan on renting a car, it makes sense to check and see what the requirements for age are for rental. I believe in the Republic, maximum age is 75 unless you can provide a doctor's note, and I didn't go any further than that. Northern Ireland, I think there is no maximum age for driving on the car, but investigate that before you go.
I apologize for any mispronunciations. I think it's Rekka says, thank you very much. Truly enjoyed this virtual tour. Beautiful photos, mixed of life lived in Northern Ireland. Janice also says thank you. Dawn says that she enjoyed your tour and she'd like to know, have you done any programs like this about New Zealand? Ever been to New Zealand, Jack?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I haven't done New Zealand as a program. I did parts of Australia, especially Tasmania. I do these kind of slideshows for Appalachian Mountain Club often, every winter up in Pinkham Notch, and I'm doing some more of them down here. So I have quite a few of them. I don't think I have a New Zealand program completed yet. But the North and the South are lovely, and the South is especially lovely.
Jack, after we wrap up, email me a list of all your other programs.
Will do.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch for sure. Let's see. Lewis says your photos are breathtaking. I have been to Sligo and Donegal. Donegal was one of my favorite places. Dorothy, my friend Dorothy, says great photos and presentation. Kate says wonderful. She has family in Tyrone.
County Tyrone, yes.
Yep. Teresa would love for you to put together a presentation on New Zealand. Let's see here. Let me get back to the questions. Joyce asks, how easy is it to understand the heavy Irish accents?
I did not have any real problem. No, I didn't have any problem. I have hearing aids that sometimes cause issues of hearing, but I don't recall having any issues in Ireland. No, not at all. The North is more English, and Gaelic is more in the Republic. And we did not hear much Gaelic, as I recall. It's primarily English.
And did they have any problems with your Massachusetts accent?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, right. So actually, Pat and Eileen have similar questions. Pat asks, did you go on a tour or tour on your own? And Eileen asks, how did you find and arrange for your walking tour in Belfast? And were you pleased to have this guide versus self-tour?
First about travel, we traveled independently, and I like to be in a place for more than one night. So we would search out places that had multiple day accommodations. I only need internet, a comfortable bed, shower, clean, and if possible, some breakfast. What was the other question, Robert? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, and you know what? They really weren't actually as similar as I thought. Eileen asks, how did you find and arrange for your walking tour in Belfast? And
we
were you
always
pleased to
go
have
into
yeah.
we
Go ahead.
always go into the tourist destination in the city and locate there, because they're going to recommend, well, they have recommendations for a list of guides. Some guides you can choose and actually pay, as we did 2 guides in Belfast, and in Londonderry or Derry, the information center identified a free walking tour that was to be starting within an hour of when we arrived. So we signed on to that. Free walking tours are interesting because they're very definitely the person who does it is really his own or her own person, and their view is really their view. You pay what you feel they're worth, and when you're done, I'm trying to remember if we paid, I want to say £15, I think we might have paid for that particular tour.
And Jack, can I interrupt you, because we actually had, there was a 2-part question earlier, maybe 5 minutes ago, and I'm not sure you answered it, but someone was asking how expensive it was. How expensive was this trip? I don't know if you want to give a dollar amount, but did you find this trip expensive?
This trip was not so expensive because the airline flight was cheap. It was $100 round trip, so that's not a good measure. We tend to book hotels and places through booking.com, although any of those hotel apps are pretty good. We tend to book with places that will have a breakfast if possible, so that we might only buy another meal during the day. And that meal might be, well, let's say for 2 people, if I said €100, that might be a bit much. The car expense is the other expense you really need to pay attention to. I would recommend getting the smallest car that you can get. And if you can drive a manual shift, get that one as well. That will reduce the car costs. Roads are narrow and small. The cars use gasoline, and gasoline is more expensive than it is here in the US.
Wow.
I can't actually put a number on this. I wish I could do that. I'm sorry, I can't put a price on this trip.
Between stick shift and driving on the other side of the road and narrow roads, I would not do well in Ireland. Todd asks, so we're winding down here. Todd asks, are there any areas you would recommend trying to day hike around, looking for views and scenery?
In the national parks, there are a lot of hiking trails. In a lot of places, there are county parks as well. We did some hiking, and I did not include some of those in the photographs. Again, when you drive into a place you intend to be for a while, talk to the people in the tourist information and ask them specifically about hiking trails and what the difficulty is or might be, where they're located, and if and what their recommendations are. Occasionally, you can find guided hiking trips too, if you go through the Tourist Information Center.
Let's see here. So let me stroke your ego a little bit, Jack. Melanie says, thank you for this presentation. Patricia says, fascinating. Looking forward to your next presentation. Margaret says, we always like his presentations, especially when we see them in person. There's an idea. Joyce says, beautiful photography. Francis says, thank you, Jack, and Tewksbury Library. I'm going to skip that comment from Patricia. Lorraine says, loved your presentation, Jack. I visited this area and your pictures and your narration were wonderful. It was a trip down memory lane. Eileen says, thanks for this presentation. Great photos. I enjoyed your insights. And Karen, I did see your question earlier. I see it now again. So yes, I will be emailing everyone tomorrow a link to this recording. So look for an email from me tomorrow. There'll be a recording there and you'll be able to share it with family and friends. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to wind down. Jack, do you have any last words for the group before we end the session?
No, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. It was really nice to be able to go back to Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland. And I really do need to go back there, especially Dunlu's Castle, which I have relations to. That was interesting, I found afterwards. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate that. And Robert, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. And Jack, thanks for your patience. Sorry we started a few minutes late, folks. I want to thank the Friends of the Library for sponsoring the event. And again, look for that email tomorrow with the feedback survey, with the recording, and with some information about some other virtual armchair travel presentations we have coming up. So thank you all so much, and everyone enjoy the rest of their day. Bye-bye.